Welcome to Equal Ground. Headlines. I am Samuel B. Williams, bringing you your balanced coverage for trending top stories. Now, to Europe's reaction. If you're still watching, we appreciate it. A like and subscribe go a long way. Our next story. From Berlin to Lisbon, thousands of Europeans took to the streets to protest U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs and the economic turmoil they've triggered. Over the weekend, demonstrations broke out in multiple European cities as anger and anxiety spread over what many see as an American-induced financial crisis. It's quite remarkable. Typically, European protests target local governments or EU policies. Saying coordinated protests specifically against a U.S. president's actions is a throwback to events like the 2003 Iraq War demonstration. This time, the catalyst is economic. Last week, Trump announced global tariffs on a wide range of imports, part of his America First stance, which has sharply affected Europe. Stocks swung wildly and recession fears spiked after that announcement. Europeans are worried that Trump's trade war could push their economies into downturn just as they're recovering from past crises. Notably, protesters are also targeting Elon Musk, whom they see as complicit. Musk is known primarily as the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. But in this context, he's identified as Trump's advisor. Indeed, in Trump's new administration, Musk apparently heads a Department of Government Efficiency, or something akin, as hinted by Reuters' image. Musk has been involved in Trump's policy circles, and Europeans might view him as influencing Trump's erratic economic moves. Perhaps because Musk had past criticisms of EU regulations, or is now seen as helping shape the U.S. government's aggressive stance. Protests occurred on Saturday, April 5, according to Reuters. Footage info. In Germany, likely in cities like Berlin or Frankfurt, people marched with signs condemning protectionism. In Portugal and Spain there were rallies as well, reflecting how even Southern Europe feels vulnerable to a global recession sparked by a U.S.-China-Europe trade conflict. One video snippet described it as demonstrators from Germany to Portugal protesting Trump and Musk, following a tough week for markets after Trump unveiled tariffs. That pretty much sums it up. People are blaming the duo for their suddenly uncertain economic future. Consider Europe's position. The EU was initially somewhat spared by Trump's first wave of tariffs aimed at Mexico, Canada, Taiwan. But then he paused tariffs on dozens of countries for 90 days, but kept or raised on China. Europe might be in that paused category or not. Details are fluid. Still, Europe fears being next or suffering collateral damage, e.g., if global growth slows or if China's slowdown hits European exporters. There's also a sense of betrayal. Europe has traditionally been allied with the U.S. on economic matters. Saying Trump treat them with the same tariff brush as rivals has caused resentment. Some protesters likely carried EU flags and slogans about transatlantic unity being broken. Economically, European countries worry about their industries. Germany, for example, exports a lot of cars to the U.S. And indeed, Trump had threatened European auto tariffs in the past. If those go up, It hits German jobs. France exports agriculture and luxury goods. Tariffs could hurt those too. So workers in affected sectors are understandably concerned. The market turmoil that preceded the protests is key. European stock markets fell sharply, as Wall Street did. If people see their pensions and savings erode and read headlines about a US-driven trade war, it's natural they protest. European governments themselves are scrambling. EU officials have been trying to engage the Trump administration in dialogue, stressing that Europe is not an enemy in trade and warning of retaliation if tariffs hit them. Some national leaders have also spoken out. For instance, Spain's government called for a more balanced relationship with China, which implies Europe wants to maintain calm, not join a US-China escalation. These protests could put pressure on European leaders to stand firmer against Trump's actions. You might see louder rhetoric from Brussels or coordinated EU counter-tariffs if needed. But Europe also has to tread carefully to not escalate the situation. It's also symbolic that average Europeans are aware and upset enough about trade policy to protest. Tariffs and WTO rules are normally technocratic topics. But with news coverage painting Trump's tariff moves as directly threatening jobs and prices, it's become a bread-and-butter issue. Another aspect. Politically, anti-Trump sentiment in Europe was already high from his first term. This trade chaos adds fuel. So left-wing groups, perhaps labor unions and others, quickly organized demonstrations, both as economic protest and as a way to oppose Trumpism. We saw signs in video glimpses referencing Trump's name and possibly Musk's. Chants likely included disapproval of American bullying and solidarity across Europe to resist. The protests were peaceful from reports, just marches, not riots. But they send a message that Trump's policies are straining the goodwill of U.S. allies and stirring public unrest abroad. Historically, U.S. presidents try to avoid that because it can impact foreign policy cooperation. Trump, however, often measures success in terms of domestic base approval, not foreign opinion. Still, images of huge crowds in European capitals protesting him might irritate Trump, who is known to take things personally, or he might dismiss them. But European leaders cannot. They will have to respond to their public's worries, possibly by taking a tougher line with Washington, or by cushioning their economies with their own measures. In summary, major European cities saw protests against Trump's new tariffs and the economic instability they have caused. People are angry that the U.S. president's actions, aided by advisor Elon Musk, are jeopardizing their jobs and savings. This grassroots backlash in Europe highlights the global fallout of Trump's trade war. With markets gyrating and recession alarms ringing, European publics are demanding their leaders stand up to the U.S. and find a way to restore stability. The transatlantic relationship is under strain, not through tweets or defense spending spats this time, but through the wallets and livelihoods of everyday people who are now out in the streets voicing their alarm.